Hey, Jer. So I was watching your video on evolution of consciousness, and I guess I want to reiterate something I said in another video that um, yeah, I've been thinking about this too. But how does evolution of consciousness works? Because I agree with you about moving a little bit away from Ken Wilber. In a sense, I've kind of gone back and forth on him and decided that basically his gift is basically that of the great summarizer. He tends to summarize all these different views from Gebser, from Whitehead, from Clare Graves, and all these things, and like integrates, like has such a vast library of ideas that he tries to integrate them into one big system, and then you lose some of the details in the process of like how these models work. Um, and so what you end up with is this Cartesian graph of four quadrants, and lines pointing out, and like, okay, here's consciousness, and like, okay, yeah, but how's that work? Um, so yeah, I mean, what has really influenced me in terms of explaining evolution of consciousness um, is looking into Francisco Varela and Evan Thompson, and then the whole inactive paradigm. Um, it's And I think in order to understand evolution of consciousness, you have to first like figure out what consciousness is. And I think inactivism does a great service in that respect because it talks about consciousness as embodied action. It is is in Whiteheadian terms, prehension of one's environment. The structure relates to its environment in a certain way, and that in the way in which it relates to it is its level of consciousness. And then you can actually compare to emergence of higher orders of consciousness because an electron may actually have some consciousness in terms of its awareness of the proton, the nucleus, and the other electrons. But then it the electron's prehension of the nucleus prehension of the electron creates the whole coherency of an atomic consciousness. The atoms can then form molecules, and then there could be like a molecular consciousness in terms of the individual atoms prehending one another and prehending their relationship to their environment. So consciousness, um, we can talk about consciousness as a spectrum in terms of its relatedness to sort of its embodied interactive relatedness to other entities, and sort of the form of overall coherence of this of the what Whitehead called societies, the sort of overall the level of complex that any in instance, this is I think where Ken Wilber's model comes back in is you talk about right hand and left hand complexity, that as a thing increases in complexity in the right hand quadrant, from the physiosphere to the biosphere to the noosphere, there is a similar increase in the left hand quadrant as well. And so we get up to humans. Now, how do humans evolve their consciousness? Well, I think this is actually also Ken Wilber actually turns out does have an interesting insight in this. If you read in the endnotes of Sex Ecology Spirituality, he actually offers his critique of the inactive paradigm. And one thing he says that Varela leaves out is the idea of the lower left quadrant. Yeah, the idea that there could be enactment of social environments as well as enactment of physical environment. And this makes sense. You're talking about language and how much language influences our consciousness. And so in a sense, people form societies, and the society and their consciousness is affected by the social relations within that society. Um, and out of those social relations, a certain level of awareness emerges, um, and the level of consciousness that can emerge in the individual is related to the level of awareness of the society as a whole. And an individual can be sort of below the level of society or beyond it, um, but it's hard to get too far beyond it because you sort of it's because anything sort of beyond the level of your society is sort of uncharted territory. And so it's like the more people are at a certain level of consciousness, and the more they can share that level of consciousness with other people, the more sturdy that foundation is, and the more people can get up there. So there's a sort of cumulative effect for that consciousness. I'm also I mentioned the eight circuit model of consciousness that you attributed it to Robert Anton Wilson, but it was actually Timothy Leary who first came up with it. Robert Anton Wilson just popularized it a little bit more with the book Prometheus Rising, which I still keep meaning to read that book. I've read so many of Robert Anton Wilson's books, but that's one I haven't got around to yet. Anyway, yeah, I think that's a great model too. I'm not so sure that it's any more accurate than spiral dynamics, but it's just another way of looking at it. Yeah, and I think it's a valid way of looking at it. What I would definitely want to avoid in discussing evolution of consciousness is any sort of pre-given levels that already exist as potentials, and we're just going to lead up to them. In a sense, I think any level of consciousness that has not yet been reached is still sort of indeterminate. We have to sort of evolve as a group up to a certain level, and then individuals may be able to reach beyond that level, and sort of what form that level will take can be it can be any number of possibilities. So I guess so yeah, I guess that's all I want to say is that sort of consciousness evolves by its relatedness to its surroundings, much like life does. And that it adapts to its environment, and the novelty comes into play, and it transcends that social environment to create new social environments. And so I guess that's it for now.